Hi everybody, it's Martin from Branco Customs here, and welcome to another awesome build video of this wicked karambit. I started off with the CAD drawing which I had been working on for a while, sending backwards and forwards to my client in order to verify all the aspects of the design. I lay out some blue die chem on a nice piece of 6.2mm thick, which is pretty much 1/4 inch thick, D2 tool steel. I then chop that out and use it as a stencil for building the knife. Once the rough shape's been cut out, I take it over to the milling machine in order to put that large hole in the back end of the knife. To do this was a little bit complicated to drill such a large diameter hole, but it turns out very low speeds and a nice sharp tungsten carbide cutter will get you there in the end. I then used a variety of chamfering and deburring and radii tools in order to make a nice smooth edge on the ring. He was then over to the 4-inch angle grinder to cut out the rest of the profile. Even with fresh ceramic belts, this 6.2mm thick D2 steel really gives my grinder a run for his money. So here we have the main profile completed. I sent this snapshot video to my client just to double check everything was as he liked. The grinding shapes on the bevels on this knife really present some challenges, but anyway, I got stuck in with the rough grind before heat treatment. We're actually going to be putting a bolt-on handle scale onto this, but rather than just tapping into the steel itself, I'm going to do it a much better way, I think, by using some hardened stainless steel pivot bushings with a 4mm thread through the middle. So in order to make sure everything's a nice tight fit, once I've drilled the holes through the tang of the knife, I then ream those holes to bang on 4mm so it's a perfect sliding fit for the pin bushes. These bushes will then be recessed into the carbon handle scales for a really integral fit. I also added some nice chamfered lanyard holes in 3 positions, 2 at the front and 1 at the back, just in case they're ever useful for this design. I then drill a few extra holes in the middle of it in order to relieve some extra weight and also to add some extra surface area for the epoxy to glue to. Then back onto the abrasive hollow wheel in order to add some nice false edge to the back edge of the blade. Even though I'm doing this freehand, in order to keep symmetry, I very carefully scribe lines into both axes of each edge before going to the grinder. So I know as long as I stay neating up to those lines, everything's going to work out fine. On the pommel end of this knife, it's not typical as a normal karambit, but as the client's wishes, we added a small pry bar. This again is nice hardened steel which can be used for all sorts of tasks. It was then on to the painstaking task of laying out and filing in the serrations. Next up was heat treatment, where it's wrapped in a nice stainless steel foil which puts it into a protective environment while it's up at those high temperatures. And here it is, hot out of the quench, unwrapping it, checking for straightness. After a bit of a cleanup, I then go to do some nice etching on the blade. To do this, I cover the blade with nail polish, a couple of coats, and then go on to the laser. The laser removes the areas of the pattern that I can then go back to and etch. Here's another quick tip for those knife makers out there. Always take your wife with you to the shops. Otherwise, when you go in there buying all this fluorescent pink nail polish, the guys in the shop look at you pretty weird. I simply use a saturated salt water solution and about a 10 volt DC power supply in order to etch the steel. I use acetone in copious amounts to wipe off all the nail varnish and reveal the beautiful pattern. Then a quick dip into some ferric chloride acid to give it that war-torn look. In this next stage, I'd already glued the liners onto the handle material, which is a nice piece of solid 3K carbon fiber. I then go over to the drill press and start marking out the holes. As a top tip, my drill isn't going that fast. This video has just been sped up maybe 500 times. I drill all the holes slightly undersized and then use a reamer to take them to the exact precision fit. The outside of the holes are then countersunk in order to fit the heads of the screws nice and level. I then loosely assemble the side scales onto the knife in order to finish off the profiling. Remember, it doesn't matter that the screws aren't in there because the internal pivots are actually what's holding it in position, nice and accurately, because everything was reamed to precision. Again, don't try this at home, but if you do, wear a respirator and eye protection, because the last thing anyone wants is black lung. I then go back to the grinder in order to start rough profiling the shape of the handle scales. This is always a case of doing a little bit, double checking, progressing slowly, making sure it's all on track and symmetrical. A little bit more shaping, a little bit of polishing, and bam! It's done. Oh, and what's that? That's right, a nice matching Kydex sheath. If you like my videos and the things I create and would like to see more of it, please hit like, hit subscribe, and then if you also hit the notification bell, you'll be notified as soon as I release some new material on YouTube.